The parents left me alone with their kid. So I called the cops. So I work as an after-school tutor. My job's mostly helping with homework, giving some co-curricular support, and sometimes prepping kids for tests. Right from the start, I make it crystal clear, I'm not a babysitter. I'm not trained to handle emergencies like a medical episode, and I sure don't want to get blamed if something goes wrong. I don't need a parent sitting in the room or anything, but they need to stay home while I'm with their kid. Still, every now and then, some parents try to pull a fast one, sneaking out to run errands or pop by work, thinking I won't notice. Usually, once I catch it the first time and give them a warning, plus mention there's a fee, they stop. But recently, I had this one mom who just dipped out during a session. First time it happened with them. I wrapped up with the kid and had to leave for another appointment. I called her. Texted her. Nothing. No response. Now, this kid's only 8. I didn't feel right leaving her alone, especially when there wasn't another adult around. I waited about 15 minutes, getting more anxious by the second and already running late for my next session. Eventually, I called the non-emergency police line to ask what to do. They said they'd send someone out. Cops showed up and said they'd stay with the girl. Not long after, the mom finally gets back to me, and she is livid. She left me angry voicemails, gave me bad reviews, saying I blew things way out of proportion. Apparently, child services asked her a bunch of questions, and now she's embarrassed, saying I made her look like a negligent parent. She claimed she thought the session was longer and figured she had time to run a quick errand around the corner. Said she thought I'd still be there when she got back. At first, I felt confident I did the right thing. But she seemed genuinely shaken by how it all went down. One of my friends told me I overreacted and that I could have put the kid in more danger by involving the police, or at least should have waited for the mom to return and had a conversation before taking that step. Am I the bad? Look, if you leave your kid with someone who's not trained for emergencies, don't be shocked when they make a responsible but uncomfortable call. Now let's switch gears from people neglecting their kids to a mom doing absolutely everything she can to protect hers, even if it means getting judged by complete strangers online. She called me an anti-vaxer, but my daughter can't be vaccinated. I'm 21 years old, and I'm a mom to a little girl who's just over 2 now. She's everything to me: bright eyes, big smile, tiny hands that reach for mine when she's scared or sleepy. I never imagined I'd be a mom this young, but when you love your kid as fiercely as I love mine, age kind of fades into the background. Now here's the thing. My daughter had a heart transplant not long after she was born. It was the most terrifying time of my life. We spent months in hospitals, praying, hoping, crying, just trying to keep her alive. And thank God, she made it. But the surgery left her severely immunocompromised. That means her immune system doesn't work like yours or mine. She's extremely vulnerable, especially to viruses. And because of her condition, she can't get live virus vaccines. Not that I don't want her to, she physically can't. Her doctors made it clear that giving her something like that could put her at serious risk. We're talking life or death kind of risk. So with that in mind, I stay home full-time. My boyfriend works, and I handle everything with our daughter. No daycare. No playgroups. We limit visitors. It's lonely sometimes, sure. But it's what we have to do to keep her safe. I'm part of a young mom's Facebook group. Most of us are in the same age range, just trying to figure this whole parenting thing out together. There's usually a lot of support, some advice swapping, a few vent posts. It's a nice space. Or it used to be. One day, someone started a thread about daycare, whether we send our kids or stay home. I commented, saying I'm a stay-at-home mom because daycare just isn't safe for us. I mentioned that my daughter isn't vaccinated because of her heart transplant, and that we have to be extra cautious. That's when this new member jumped in, some girl my age with a newborn. She didn't know my story, but instead of asking questions, she went straight to judgment. She started calling me names in the comments. Said I didn't belong in the group if I was so anti-vax. That I was putting other children in danger. That I was irresponsible. I tried to keep it civil at first. I replied, actually, my daughter had a transplant. She can't get vaccinated. Her response? Stop making excuses. And that's when I snapped. I said, you're an absolute idiot. If you even bothered to glance at my profile for a second, you'd see that I'm a vocal advocate for vaccines. And if you did even 5 minutes of research, you'd know that giving a live virus vaccine to someone who's severely immunocompromised is extremely dangerous. I didn't call her names to be mean, I called her out because she refused to listen. Because she could have taken 1 second to ask, hey, why isn't your daughter vaccinated? But she didn't. She went straight to assumptions and attacks. Next thing I know, she's posting a rant about me in the group, making herself out to be the victim. And, of course, a few people chimed in, saying I was the bad for calling her an idiot. That I could have handled it better. That I should have taken the high road. Look, I get that words carry weight, and maybe idiot wasn't the best word I could have chosen in the moment. But when you've spent 2 years living on high alert, watching every stranger who walks by your kid, monitoring every sneeze, every cough, every surface she touches, when someone comes along and treats your child's medical condition like a joke or a debate topic, it hits a nerve. So now I'm sitting here wondering, was I wrong for snapping? Was I too harsh for calling her out like that in public? Or was it just the natural response of a mom who's tired of having to explain why her kid's life isn't up for discussion? What do you think? Sometimes, people are so quick to attack that they forget there's a human story behind the screen, and a little compassion could go a long way. Up next, a father who feels completely blindsided by his teenage daughter's pregnancy, and his response is raw, emotional, and honestly, kind of heartbreaking. My teen daughter got pregnant. Now I refuse to speak to her. This one's tough to talk about. I'm still carrying the weight of it, and honestly, I don't know when or if I'll be ready to put it down. I found out a few days ago that my daughter, she's 17, is pregnant. That one sentence still feels like a punch to the chest every time I say it. When I first heard the news, I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just shut down. I felt numb. Like all the air had been sucked out of the room. I turned around and walked away without saying much. I needed space. I needed time. We used to be close. Really close. I was the kind of dad who actually sat down and had the talks. I made sure she knew everything, how to protect herself, the importance of safe relationships, birth control, condoms, you name it. I trusted her. She told me everything, or at least I thought she did. I even defended her when her mom thought we were being too lenient. I let her go to her boyfriend's house because I believed she was responsible. I believed she'd come to me if something went wrong. But she didn't. And now here we are. I haven't really spoken to her since. I've barely looked at her. The pain is that fresh, that raw. Earlier today, she came over while I was watching TV, something simple, like the Super Bowl, and asked if we were still watching it together like we always did. I didn't want to answer. I wanted to stay quiet. But instead, I looked at her and said, "This is the last time I'm talking to you." I told her how disappointed I was, more than I've ever been in my life. I said, everything I've taught you, everything we've talked about, it just went in one ear and out the other. I wasn't angry in that loud, shouting kind of way. It was quieter than that. More final. I told her she broke my trust. That she used to confide in me, and now she kept the biggest thing from me. I told her from now on, she could talk to her mom, and if anything needed to get to me, her mom could pass the message along. That was it. Later, my wife came into the den to ask what had happened. I told her to ask her daughter. She said she tried, but our daughter was crying so hard she couldn't make out a word. So I told her everything I said. She was upset. Really upset. She told me I needed to talk to our daughter, that I couldn't just cut her off emotionally like this. But I told her I already did talk to her. That I had nothing left to say. And that I wasn't going to say anything else until I felt ready, if that ever happens. I said, I don't know when I'll be ready. Maybe never. Now, I know that sounds cold. Harsh even. And maybe it is. But I can't pretend this didn't break something inside me. It's not just about the pregnancy. It's about the betrayal. The lies. The weight of knowing your child didn't trust you enough to come to you before everything spiraled out of control. And the truth is, I don't know how to support someone when I feel this hurt by them. Everyone keeps saying I should be the bigger person, that she's just a kid and she needs her dad now more than ever. But what about me? What about the father who feels like he failed at the one job that mattered most? So yeah, maybe I'm the bad. Maybe I should have reacted better. But I didn't. I couldn't. Am I really wrong for needing time before I can talk to her again? Or is it okay for a father to step back when his heart feels like it's been shattered? When trust is shattered between a parent and child, it's not just about rules, it's about identity, disappointment, and the silence that follows. Now imagine dating someone for 6 years, only to find out he's been playing pretend in more ways than one. This next twist? It's wild. You won't believe why my boyfriend lied about being married. Until I found out the truth. So, I've been with my boyfriend for about 6 years now, and we live together. He's made it clear that he doesn't want to get married, something that used to be a big issue between us, but I've since come to terms with it. One day, he was on a Zoom call with a coworker, and I walked in to hand him some coffee. That's when the coworker smiled and said something like, so this is the lovely wife I've heard all about. Trying to be polite but honest, I laughed a little and said, thanks, but we're not actually married. He looked a bit confused and replied, really? Your boyfriend always refers to you as his wife. We exchanged names, did the quick intro thing, and I exited the room as gracefully as I could, though the vibe between the two of them felt off. Not long after, my boyfriend came out looking annoyed and asked, what was that all about? I was confused and asked him to clarify. That's when he told me that I shouldn't have corrected his coworker, that it's just easier if everyone assumes I'm his wife. I told him flat out, I'm your girlfriend, not your wife. And you never mentioned that you go around telling people otherwise. Somehow, that kicked off a full-blown argument. From my side, the issue was that he never told me this was how he introduces me. From his side, he claimed I should have realized the coworker thought we were married and just rolled with it. When I pointed out that I assumed the guy was just making a harmless mistake, my boyfriend snapped and said that wasn't the point at all. He said correcting the coworker made him look bad, like he was pretending or being dishonest. Then came the wildest part, he told me that next time he's on a call with that same coworker, I should walk in, strike up a conversation, and claim I was just joking last time. He wanted me to say we actually are married and that not being married is just a silly inside joke between us. I stared at him and told him that was the dumbest idea I'd ever heard, and there's no chance I'm doing that. He fired back saying I was being a bad person, that I caused this situation, and now it's my job to fix it. So, am I the bad one here? Comments section summary. Most folks in the comments weren't buying my boyfriend's story. They thought the whole thing was sketchy. One person summed it up perfectly, if he's not married, he doesn't get to call you his wife. Plain and simple. Turns out they were onto something. Update. We finally had a real talk, and that's when the truth hit me like a truck. My boyfriend had been romantically involved with a female coworker. He told her, I can't leave my wife for you. I guess that sounds a lot more permanent than, I can't leave my girlfriend for you. Now, to keep up appearances, he's planning to tell people we got divorced. When someone lies about their entire relationship just to manipulate a side piece? That's not just shady, that's soap opera level betrayal. Next up, a father with grown kids gets a second chance at fatherhood, but instead of support, he gets judgment from the one person he hoped would be happy for him. My daughter shamed me for having a baby at 61. So I cut her off. This story isn't easy to tell. I've played it over in my head 100 times, wondering if I did the right thing, if maybe I overreacted, but every time I land in the same place. I'm 60 years old. I've lived through a lot, good, bad, and everything in between. I've got grown kids, and recently, I remarried. My wife is 31. Yes, she's young. Yes, she's closer in age to my daughter than she is to me. And believe me, I've heard all the comments, some whispered, some not. But it's real. What we have is love. It's not fake or transactional or creepy. We're both adults. We both made the decision to be together. And for a while, things were good. Then, a few months ago, everything changed. My wife came to me in tears. She told me that she'd spent years convincing herself she didn't want children, but that was starting to feel like a lie. She said watching all her friends become moms had stirred something in her. She wanted that connection. That role. She wanted to be a mom. Not someday, now. I was surprised, yeah. I mean, I'm not exactly in my prime parenting years. But after thinking it over and seeing how serious and emotional she was, I realized I wanted it too. Maybe not in the way I did when I was younger, but in a way that made sense for this chapter of my life. A way that felt like hope. And so we tried. And not long after, we found out she was pregnant. I'll never forget the way she cried when she saw the positive test. She was glowing. For the first time in a long time, she looked whole. Now, my daughter, she's 29. She and I used to be close, but things had been tense ever since I remarried. I think the age gap bothered her more than she let on. But still, our birthdays are only a week apart, and we decided to do a joint dinner at our place. My wife and I figured that would be a perfect time to share the news. Keep it casual. Celebrate something big. So we invited her and her fiancé over. Set the table nice. Cooked a great meal. Everyone was smiling when they walked in. It felt like a good night. Then I made the announcement. I said, "We have some big news. You're going to have a little sibling." At first, it was just silence. My daughter crossed her arms. Her fiancé gave this awkward, polite "oh wow, congratulations," but my daughter just stared at us like we'd grown horns. Then she said, "Honestly? I'm shocked. I don't even know what to say." My wife, trying to stay calm, asked her what she meant. Why was it so hard to just be happy for us? That's when my daughter let loose. She said, "Dad, you're not young anymore. You couldn't keep up with me and my brother 20 years ago. How are you supposed to raise a kid now? What about when they graduate? You'll be what, 80? You won't even be around long enough to see them grow up." She got more upset as she went on. Her voice got louder. She said she felt sorry for the baby. That she'd have to get attached to a half-sibling, only to watch them go through life with a father who might not be there for all the milestones. Then she started crying. Full-on crying. And in the middle of that, she looked us both in the eye and said we were being unethical. Unethical. Like bringing a child into this world, when you're not the ideal age, is some sort of crime. My wife was devastated. I could see her holding back tears. And let me tell you, this pregnancy hasn't been easy. There's family history of gestational diabetes, and she's already stressed. This just piled on top of all that. My daughter stormed off to the bathroom. When she came back, she tried to act like nothing happened. She asked if we could talk about something else. I looked at her and said, "I think we should end dinner." She got mad. Accused me of kicking her out for speaking her truth. Said I ruined her night, and that she'd never forget how I treated her on her birthday week. She left, and I barely heard from her since. I told my wife that night, "I'm done." I told her I wasn't going to keep chasing a relationship with someone who thinks my happiness is disgusting. Someone who would rather shame me than support me. Later that week, my daughter texted me something cold. She didn't apologize, just doubled down. Said she stood by everything she said. So I made a decision I never thought I'd have to make. I told her I was done trying. That if she couldn't respect my choices, if she couldn't treat my wife and unborn child with basic decency, then I was done being part of her life. I didn't scream. I didn't curse. I just stepped away. Some family members say I went too far. That I should be the bigger man. That I'm her dad, and it's my job to be patient and forgiving. But what about me? What about my wife? What about the little life growing inside her? I spent years giving everything to my kids. And I'll always love my daughter. But I won't let that love become a license for cruelty. So, was I wrong? Was I the bad for cutting things off with my daughter? Or is there a point where a parent gets to protect themselves too? There's a line between being honest and being hurtful, and sometimes, when someone crosses it, walking away might be the only way to heal. And finally, we've got a story that'll leave you torn. When grief consumes a household, what happens when one partner decides they need a break right when the other needs them most? He ditched his grieving wife to party. What happened next shocked me. So here's what went down. Last Tuesday around 7 p.m., my mother-in-law passed away. She'd been diagnosed about 5 months earlier with a brain tumor, and we all knew from the start that it wasn't something she'd recover from. She was staying in a hospice facility, which honestly wasn't bad at all, but even with that, my wife completely shut down emotionally. She basically became a zombie version of herself. And for the past 5 months, I've been doing everything, working nonstop, holding down the house, and not getting any real appreciation or affection in return. My wife started living off microwave dinners, so I ended up making meals for our 15-year-old daughter. She stopped trying, even at work, wearing nothing but sweats every day. And her hygiene took a serious hit. She used to shower daily, and now maybe twice a week. A few months ago, our daughter baked her a cake for her 48th birthday, and it went totally unnoticed. So when my 48th rolled around, literally yesterday, I already knew I wasn't going to get a cake or celebration. The doctors had made it clear again that her mom was on her last days, and every time my wife heard it, she broke down crying. I called up a few friends and family who live in Alabama. They said, "You deserve to enjoy your birthday. Come down and visit." After everything I'd been through, that honestly sounded good. I needed a reset. So I decided to fly out and spend a week there, just reconnecting with loved ones and catching my breath. But when I told my wife, she completely lost it. She begged me not to go and promised she'd try to manage her grief better if I stayed. She even said she really believed she could hold it together this time, even though we'd had 4 false alarms already. Look, I was never that close to her mother. I mean, I probably wouldn't even make the top 10 list of people her mom would want to see before she passed. Still, my wife swore she'd try to be more emotionally present and didn't care if we lost money on the flight I already booked. I told her I didn't want her to pretend to act okay just for me. I know she's hurting in a way I've never experienced. But I also felt like I was falling apart myself, and the only thing that might help was taking a breather. So, yeah, I flew to Alabama. That Tuesday night, I got a call from our daughter. My mother-in-law had passed. She told me she was staying at her best friend's house and that she was doing fine. My wife, on the other hand, sent me a text saying I had betrayed our marriage vows. I asked if she still wanted me to come home, even though I had a bunch of friends and family lined up for birthday plans. My return flight was scheduled for Sunday. She replied, "Do whatever you want. But if you're expecting me to go back to the version of myself who worked out and dressed up every day, you're going to be disappointed." So here I am, trying to figure out if I'm the bad one for needing a break when I felt like I was reaching my breaking point. I'll be flying back Sunday, but I've got this feeling that I'm not going to be welcome at the funeral. Comments section summary. One commenter, Shiramum4, didn't hold back. She called me out and said I was being selfish. She said it wasn't unreasonable to cook for a teen and that I shouldn't be upset about my wife wearing sweats or skipping makeup. That kind of stress isn't about me. Other folks agreed. I basically bailed while my wife was drowning in grief. And instead of being there, I went and had a birthday party. Honestly? They might be right.